Right guys, I've had a few questions about using foam roller. Let's see my little camo number there. But so a lot of people, like to do a lot of foam rolling. Some people try to avoid it as much as they can. The first question is, what's the point? Well, the point with the foam roller is that if we get a bit of pressure on certain parts of the body, certain tissues which are a bit tight, what we tend to see improved mobility when we move. So if we basically take a little bit of tension out of these muscles, we can then perform exercises a bit better and move a little bit more effectively and efficiently. If we do that over a period of time, then again it's going to just add to how we, helping us move better. So for me, it's a positive thing. Now there's lots of stuff where people will say it breaks down scar tissue and things like that. It doesn't really do that, I don't think. I tend to think it just depolarises the muscle, giving you a little bit like a short stretch, but probably a little bit more guided towards the areas that are tight and more relevant for you. And that's why, when I sort of tend to say, what's the best time to do foam rolling, we tend to do it before session. And if you've got any areas that really, need a lot of work, or you carry a lot of tension in certain areas, then, you can do it around exercise as well. So for a lot of our guys at the gym, it's at the start of the session for sure, and then at the end a little bit more guided and individualised for what you need. Okay. When it comes down to areas that we foam roll, the areas that we tend to sort of see the best return in are the areas of, if you like, dense fibrous tissue. Okay, and they typically tend to be areas then that carry a lot of tension, and then it's harder to get tension out with that, with even with regular soft tissue massage work, hands-on. So the idea with the foam roller is that if we do this a number of times, we, just a bit like training, we can basically slowly start to improve that mobility and range in that area if we twin it up with really sensible movement and exercise. So I'm going to go through a few key foam rolls that we find quite useful for a lot of our clients. Again, the amount of time that you spend on each one will probably be more guided towards where you are, or your pain tolerance. But either way, it's probably worth incorporating some of them into the start of your sessions. And also, if you do carry a lot of tightnesses, it can be a really useful tool to start regularly doing this. Especially if you get, if you're in jobs with not a lot of movement, e.g. seated, so desk jobs, working from home, even through to certain jobs where you just perform the same patterns repeatedly. So for instance, a lot of our guys, if you're a tradesman and you're working off your knees a lot and things like that, you can tend to get tight ITBs. Sports people wise, what we tend to see a lot of distance runners, or a lot of people who work in straight lines, we tend to sort of see a lot of tightnesses in and around the hips. And I'll start at the bottom of the body and then work up, just to sort of show you sort of like the different roles that we can utilise. So your first one, down on the ground. Let me just tilt the camera in just so we've got a better angle. Okay, first area that we're going to sort of work into that we tend to find works quite well is your calves, okay? And specifically between where the calf meets the, if you like, the Achilles tendon. So again, the Achilles tendon is just a very dense area of tissue leading up into the main body of the muscle of the calf. So people who tend to have, quite tight, tight around the ankle joint can sometimes, and maybe limited range if you're pushing your knee over your toe, going into, or just basically limited range into dorsiflexion. Okay, can tend to work quite well just to take a little bit of tension out of the calf. So we can work in either side, just around the both sides of the calf, just at that joint where the tendon becomes the muscle. Okay, just working back and forth in that area. Moderate pressure, 7 out of 10, sort of on the comfortable scale. Should feel like a little bit like someone's just working in there. You don't have to brutalise yourself on this, it's just enough just to get a little bit of work in there. Okay? And so when you come to this, first of all, sometimes it can lead to some like low level bruising. At that point, you've probably pushed is basically our quads here and our ITBs. Again, the ITB is again another really, really dense area of tissue that can sometimes get quite tight. Specifically with soft tissue work, sports masseurs tend to really sort of like try and strip that area down. My personal preference is, although you can sort of, go and see a sports masseur once a week and they can work into those areas, I tend to think regular interventions on this is a really useful way of maintaining that progress and maintaining that mobility and just improving that pliability of this area. So, basically what I'm sort of saying is that if you're doing soft tissue work once a week, you might be best complementing it with regular foam rolling work as well to really get, good bang for your buck on these. Okay, so what we're going to do, 1 foot over the top just to control the tension, okay, and then you're going to roll down to the knee, then all the way up into the thigh, okay, so we're just working down the main body of the ITB, the iliotibial band, which runs down the outside of your thigh, down the outside of the quad, okay. Now, so that's the first sort of that section of the muscle. We can then also roll over and get a little bit on the top half of the muscle, again just on that top part of that band. And that band's all connective tissue, a tissue called fascia. It looks like the cling filmy bit on chicken, okay? And that can all get dense and tight, okay? And what we really want to do is just get some pressure on that area, okay? So we've got the main side of the ITB there. We can also work up into the fleshy area, just on your glutes and your top of your ITB into something called your TFL, your tensor fasciae lata. Okay, so we're just going to work back and forth into that area as well. Again, just trying to aiming to unlock that hip complex a little bit there. Okay, so we can work in there. Again, just control the pressure on there. Wants to feel like a 7 out of 10 as we work in there. From there, we're going to work into your glutes and your posterior hip, just on the back there. Leaning into it, just drop the knee, so we're almost on your side bum, and then we can work in and out here. Now, interesting one on this, I mean, to be honest, you may have some people who have sort of, if you like, sciatic symptoms. I'd probably sort of say sciatica is probably something that you need to see a specialist about, but what you generally find is if you're looking to improve your hip mobility or you're carrying tension into things like your lower back, foam rolling the lower limbs can just sometimes help, and especially getting a little bit of tension taken out of the posterior hip, especially with a lot of programs emphasising a lot of glute work and stuff like that, okay? So we can just work in there. Again, if you've got any sciatic issues, can feel a little bit spasmy, okay? If the muscles are tight, it can then, you might sort of like feel it sort of like across the top of the pelvis. It's fine as long as it, you can control what you're doing on this. Okay, but again, if you've got pain, I would probably go and see a specialist. So working in and out here. Now, on this one, you're going to notice side-to-side differences. Okay, so you might find one side you just need to spend a little bit more time foam rolling than the other, just to take the tension out of it. It'll probably be more in the feeling of tension that you get in that area of how much time you need to spend working into the glutes. Okay. From there, we're going to work into the upper back. Okay, so what we really need is we need nice stable knees, nice mobile hips, a really stable lower back. We want to get range of movement from our upper back or thoracics. So here what we're going to do, hands up behind your head, elbows together, and then our first one is just going to be an extension over the foam roller. Okay, and we're just going to move that down. Okay, move the roller up, even up the back. So we're starting at the base of the rib cage. And what I'm aiming to do is push back into the roller. So I'm pushing right back into the roller, getting a bit of pressure. Now what I'm not doing is just dropping myself over the top, okay? I'm keeping there, just putting pressure back into the vertebrae, then I'm going to come back down again, start there, okay? And what you're going to notice as you work through this is you just get that extension back and feel like quite a nice stretch. Again, where do we see a lot of these tightnesses? People who don't get into extension that much. So if you don't get your hands over your head that much, so you're stuck at a desk or stuck driving. Okay, so that's one there. And now we can work into the soft tissue on either side of the spine there. So what we're going to do is just lift the bum up off the floor and just roll it up and down. Now, you're going to get to sort of like mid-back area, just at the bottom of your shoulder blades. Probably find some dense tissue there. We don't want to really go into the lower back. A lot of people get a lot of pleasure about rolling lower back. Don't really see a necessity to do that, because if we're carrying a lot of muscle tension in the lower back, I think we need to be looking at, you know, what our hips are doing, how tight our hips are and how tight our upper back is. Okay, so we've got this one here just rolling up and down. Now, what we can do from there, okay, is work into one side. So a slight lean in, we're going to keep the hands up behind the head, and we're just going to work on the outside of the rib cage. We're going to be touching on the lats on this one. So we're just working up the outside. Now the lats are a bit like your bat wings, the muscle that runs down the side. We don't want to get too far up into the shoulders. Again, just personal preference. We don't really want to batter that area too much. There's a lot of small muscles doing certain jobs there, but we want to sort of keep it on the outside, just a bit of pressure on the lats there, and sort of working onto that sort of like that fascial area just in the middle of the back. Again, that's pretty tight. Or can get pretty tight, and just stop us going into extending from the upper back. Okay. So they're the main rolls that I would use. Again, they're all they tend to be quite tender, and that's because they're mainly fibrous tissue rather than, say, soft, muscly tissue. So we've got the calf roll, quads and ITB into the TFL, and your glutes, and then your upper back roll as well. Okay, guys? Hope that's useful. See how you go.